love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.
Hello comrades and welcome back to Ushanka Show. Today I'm gonna make another video about Soviet childhood. You know, when I look at my kids, I have a 12-year-old boy, Oliver, and my daughter just turned 18. I feel bad for them because, my goodness, their childhood is so boring. And you know, one of the reasons is when you live out in the country. I mean, I truly enjoy to have my own house and have a nice chunk of land. I mean, I don't have a lot of land, but about an acre. But it creates a lot of problems if you have kids because there's not many kids around in many neighborhoods. Like in our case, it's kind of neighborhood was developed in 70s. So those families that moved in and were young, you know, had kids now. Nesters, so in the whole neighborhood we pretty much have only a couple of kids my Oliver plays with. So otherwise it's video games or, you know, playing games online, stuff like that. There's really not much. You have to push kids to go outside and like, hey, go ride the bike, or you have to take your kid somewhere so you can stay with other kid for sleepover. And then, you know, when they have a sleepover, most of the time they just play video games together. So I feel really bad because my childhood was way more interesting, but also it was way more dangerous, and I'm very surprised that I'm still, like, after going through the things I did when I was a kid, I still have all my fingers, I have my eyes and my ears, because we did a lot of crazy stuff. Nice thing about living in a city, in a tall apartment building, it's you always have a lot of kids to play with. For example, the first apartment building that I used to live was only 9-story high, and it was, I think, about 12 apartments per floor, so you got close to 100 apartments. And if you have young families, which we did have, so you have at least, you know, 5 to 10 kids to play with. I mean, talking just boys, and of course girls are playing separately. So if you go outside, you always have at least 2-3 friends you can play with the same age, and of course then you have a little bit older kids or a little bit younger kids. And we did a lot of things to entertain ourselves because it's pretty much you just go outside and you're on your own, no one is watching you. So we had a small playground, but of course, you know, you can play only for so long. And I already made a video about different games that kids played, but we did a lot of other things. For example, we quite often snuck into different factories, which was plenty around, and we've been stealing different things. Now I'm looking back, I'm like, man, that was really naughty, but that was a completely normal thing. I remember there was one factory, and I don't know what they were making, but they had copper cylinders in the giant crates sitting outside. I think it was like leftovers from wherever they were manufacturing. They had to cut off these little copper cylinders and then probably send them back to reprocess. So we were stealing those, and we used them like our money. So that was our local currency. You trade with kids, you know, if you want to buy candy, if someone has a candy or something like that, we use those copper cylinders because parents, we didn't have things like cash allowance. There was no way parents will give you money for chores. I don't remember anything like that. So we would use those copper cylinders to trade. And of course, if you want more, then you just go with a couple of your friends. And it's pretty dangerous because usually, you know, factories are being guarded. So there'll be a guy and probably a couple of German shepherds. But fortunately, most of the guards, we call them storage, they'll be drunk, drinking vodka, so they will pass out. So you quietly sneak in, you have your favorite spots where you can hop over the fence, or you can go through some hole in the fence and then you steal those copper cylinders, and then you can become really rich if you get a bunch of those. But our favorite thing to do was to sneak into the construction sites. And we had quite a few new buildings being built around where I used to live. And it's all, you know, so-called panel type construction. So it's all poured concrete, and then they bring the whole panels with windows and doors from the factories, and then they assemble like a Lego, 9-story high or 16-story high apartment building. And of course, there's a lot of construction materials will be laying around, and there were several things we were extremely interested in. So you wait usually till late evening, maybe like around 8 o'clock, because at 9 usually parents want you to be home. You sneak into construction site, and hopefully the guard storage is asleep or watching TV in his little cabin. We were searching first of all for, we call them patrones, so they had a special guns to drive like nails and stuff into the concrete, because the whole building was made out of concrete. There was no wood, so there'd be bricks and concrete walls. So they had special, those pistols to drive things into concrete. So they were like those charges. So it looks like a part of the bullet without actual bullet. And so we'll try to find something that if they got misfired, they got thrown away, but they still got powder inside. Or if we hit jackpot, we might find a crate. They actually keep those chargers for their nail guns, and if we can break that crate open, then we can really get a good bunch of good stuff to play with. But the most thing we're looking for in a construction sites was calcium carbide. Now that product, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, it was used for acetylene cutters. So when they need to cut metal rods, so they use these rocks with calcium carbide. It looks like a just rock, gray color rock. And if you have a tank, you put calcium carbide in it, and then you add water, and it creates a chemical reaction, and you get acetylene gas. Now, and that gas, then under pressure, you lit up, and you have a torch that you can cut metal with it and stuff like that. So we were looking for barrels with the carbide, with this calcium carbide rocks, because that was the stuff that we could use for a lot of really dangerous projects, but also those things were so much fun. First of all, you just can toss that rock into the puddle of water and just watch the bubbles. So that was the easiest way to entertain yourself. It's kind of like a little, trick, like, hey, magician trick. Look at this basic rock, I'm tossing in the water, and suddenly it creates a lot of bubbles. But as I mentioned, those bubbles were made out of acetylene gas, and it's highly flammable, and that creates a lot of interesting projects. For example, another kind of safe way of play with the carbide is we'll find some old shoe, for example, like a preferably rubber shoe, so it keeps the water. So you fill it with water, then you put several calcium carbide rocks in it, and then you carefully bury it in the sand, and then you poke the hole, and that's the hole where the gas start coming from. Then you just lit the match, put it towards that hole, and then you have a little flame, which we used to call Вечный огонь. I don't know if you're familiar. There's a lot of monuments dedicated to World War II in the Soviet Union, and it's we have this called Forever Flame. There's a fire that's always going, and it's dedicated to the people who died during the war. So that's always usually just like a star-shaped fire place, you would say it, and they have, of course, natural gas pipe to it, and this flame is always on, and it's called Forever Fire, Вечный огонь. So we'll make our own version of Вечный огонь by using rubber shoe, some calcium carbide rocks, and water. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, don't forget to put the like for this video, share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.